Thank you. Thank you very much. I love these kind of events. You meet such cool people and you hear such amazing things. Brian, you absolutely did one of the greatest jobs of summarizing food and tech and entrepreneurship and innovation in the ecosystem right now that I've heard in a really long time. Yeah, in 20 minutes. And the problem that I kind of started with, is Arturo. You're wherever you are, like you're addressing it in your own way. And the problem that I really started with was food poisoning. Who's had food poisoning before? Oh wow, a fair number of you. Yeah, it obviously is just about one of the most terrible things that any of us could go through, and I've experienced this my freshman year of college, out at CU Boulder for the first time, and it was one of those moments where I'd kind of grown up but not really knew where my food came from. You know, here in the U.S., growing up in the suburbs of New York, I got to college and was on my own and realized I have no idea how to cook. I don't know where my food comes from, but I had this moment where I, uh, I called my twin brother at that time. I have an identical twin, and he had decided to go to culinary school. And I said, Chris, how do I cook? I need to learn to cook. I'm 18 years old. And he says, get a pan hot, throw some chicken in it with some olive oil. And I did, and a moment later, I go to sit down to enjoy this food, and there's a knock on my door. And that knock was my friends from down the hall, and they wanted me to share this chicken that they smelled from down the hall. And before I knew it, I had a dozen people in my room, and we're all enjoying this chicken. And I realized that if I learned to cook, I'd be healthier, I'd make more friends, and it was really a skill I could travel with. And I really believe that travel is one of the best forms of education in the world. So I reflected for a moment, and I thought about for a second, like, what did my father do and my grandfather do? And my grandfather, oddly enough, is widely credited with inventing this product, Doritos, randomly enough. And as I thought about that, I was like, that's actually really brilliant. He went into this industry that will never become obsolete. And my father, oddly enough, was in the water industry. So I decided kind of right there and then, over this food poisoning, that I was going to go to culinary school. So I transferred to the Culinary Institute of America in 2002 in New York, and I got really involved with the slow food movement. Who here kind of knows what slow food is? Awesome. So for anybody who doesn't, it's kind of obvious. Slow food is really the opposite of fast food. It's not pizza. It's really about kind of enjoying the community around your food, about really knowing where it comes from, and really respecting the soil and the entire culture that is around it. And I, of course, very quickly realized that the world is driven by economy, so I needed to get out and learn how to cook. So I went out to the St. Regis Hotel in New York, and we were doing really high-end food service, feeding lots of people, but they didn't feed me. And it was in 2008 that I actually came here to San Francisco, and there was this really amazing, powerful movement that had kind of built up through the slow food world because of a book. Who here read Fast Food Nation, right? So Fast Food Nation, there's another book you might not know about called Slow Food Nation, and it was the founder of the slow food movement, Carlo Bitrini, who had kind of wrote what is possible in the food world. What could we do instead? So in 2008, my brother and I, with a couple others, created this. This is obviously Dolores Park, and we did this eat-in, a big sit-in potluck. Right at the top of the park, we gathered a bunch of chefs, a bunch of young people that were as passionate as we were about kind of creating a better food system, to have this sit-in potluck, right? And it was a way where we could just demonstrate the world that we wanted to see and enjoy. And of course, with most kind of sit-ins, the cops came. But in this case, we were roasting pigs, and we fed them. We fed them pigs to pigs. I thought it was kind of funny. So they didn't arrest us, and they let us do this. So it was kind of in that moment, too. Actually, it was funny enough because Mike Del Ponte, who knows Mike Del Ponte? Anybody? One person. He's from here around the factory world. He came up to me in that moment. He was like, you and your brother, you're doing cool things. Keep doing it. And he was the first person that told me about entrepreneurship and what it really meant to be an entrepreneur. And he encouraged us to do it. And I'll always remember that, and I'll get to it later. But it was then that we actually got invited to Italy, to Terra Madre. And every 2 years, the slow food movement brings together delegates from all around the world. It's kind of like the United Nations of food. So this year was 2008. About 7,000 delegates were invited from around the world. The theme there that year was youth and music, and there was about 700 of us that were invited from the US to represent the United States. And it was really there that I learned just how many people around the world cared as much as I did about building a better food system, about solving this problem. And I made a dedication to come back to the United States and instigate food revolution, or what I now kind of see as evolution. And I discovered the land-grant university system. Is anybody familiar with land grants here? Yes. So yeah, there. Okay. I mean, it's a great school. So the land grants were instituted in this country where these universities were given 30,000 acres in the charter to ensure agriculture security. As you can imagine, kind of business took hold, and they moved a little bit away from their initial charters. But I came back with this desire to go, at the time, to Umass Amherst, where there was a young sustainable food systems degree, where there was now the largest self-operated food service in the country, and we created this, the Umass Permaculture project. It was actually a program where the students were paying to get certified in permaculture, to transition the grass away from really resource-intensive watering and towards productivity that would educate students in that kind of same, environment. And it worked. And it worked so well that we actually applied for President Obama's Champions of Change Challenge, and won as the most innovative idea on college campuses in the US to revitalize the land-grant university system through these permaculture gardens. But let me step back for a second. This twin brother of mine, who was out here in Redwood City, he was teaching this health, wellness, and nutrition class for Latinos at risk for obesity. He got a call to go work at Facebook. And unfortunately, he had a better offer in Connecticut, but lo and behold, I ended up kind of coming out, taking this leap of faith, and jumping and joining the Facebook culinary team about 4 or 5 years ago. And this is, again, where I discovered these worlds of entrepreneurship and just how powerful it is for you to be able to create your own dreams, right? So I jumped in about 4 or 5 years ago and started Grubly. Has anybody ever heard of Grubly? One, two, no? So Grubly was like an Airbnb for food concept. It was kind of ahead of its time. Too early for the market, as you know, sometimes you're just way too early. But this man's really cool. Has anybody ever eaten at Airbnb? The company here? So Sam is now executive chef of Airbnb. But when I jumped in finally to this world of entrepreneurship, and I failed, I asked myself a question, what does it take to actually have a successful company? And every company that's successful really starts by solving a problem. So what's the problem that really needed to be solved? Well, the problem that needed to be solved in my mind was it's really hard to start a company. And it's even harder to start a food company. So I started the Food Hackathon. And the Food Hackathon was really a way to build this entrepreneurial ecosystem around food and to bring people together, mentors, VCs, entrepreneurs, to carrots. So this, I dressed up as a carrot for the first event. I don't know if you saw the quote beforehand. It's Paul Cézanne. He famously said, one day a single carrot freshly observed will start a revolution. And lo and behold, I don't know if we've started a revolution, but I'll show you what we have started. And this is pretty exciting. This is our last hackathon. We did it with the Food Business School from the Culinary Institute of America. And there's been quite a few of these since, but I'll just play this for you. We are here to learn, to share, to collaborate, to ideate. We are here to do good, to have fun, and to make friends. Welcome to the Food Hackathon and Forum.
We have folks from the tech sector, or designers and developers, people coming from university, people with science backgrounds, people from the food startup world, just meeting each other for the first time, getting together in a room and just going for it.
Throughout this weekend, we're going to participate in this marathon of hacking, of building, of creating, of prototyping, taking ideas to reality that improve the food system. If anything's ever going to change, everybody needs to be at the table.
The new generation of food entrepreneurs should have a lot of vision and responsibility. They need to think about the way to produce food in a sustainable way and to produce food that is nutrition.
People don't know what they're putting in their bodies. Even if they think they're eating healthy, sometimes they're not doing it. And it's a matter of getting information into people's hands. And I think technology is the way to enable that.
And so if we could make people understand that the food they eat is so much a part of the health that's going to last them their entire lives, then that would be a great breakthrough.
What's great about a hackathon is it's kind of like organized serendipity. It brings together a lot of people with common interests and common values and puts them together in a concentrated space for 2.5 days to work on solving a problem together.
Today we are creating a food and drug interaction safety app that tells you what foods to eat and what foods to avoid while on medication.
And every now and then, something magical happens and an idea actually turns into a company.
Much in the same way that Factory X here and Satya are building and birthing companies, what really my passion is now and the problem that I feel like needs to be solved as I travel around the world and I do these hackathons is really cynicism and apathy. People don't believe that things can actually change. We here in the Valley are very much in our own bubbles. This group of people in this room is special. The mentality of being able to actually believe you can and to be afforded the opportunity to try is huge. And it's because VCs take risks on these kind of, wild ideas. How do you ferment egg whites? And this question keeps coming up, and it's really one of the themes of tonight is the future of food. So what is the future of food? And again, you touched on a lot of this earlier. Will Rosenzweig, just a couple of days ago, out at the UC Davis Mars Innovation Institute for Food and Health Solution Summit, had this up on his slide, biology is the new digital. And it took me a real hard second for that to really set in, but man, if you really think about what the opportunities lie, and you're right on top of it, Arturo, the microbiome obviously is going to be a huge kind of future of potential business. Personalized nutrition, obviously, we touched on protein and water. The most important thing, though, that I feel like we really need to focus on, though, is not just how to get the next hipster as pizza faster. It's about these emerging markets. It's about China and India. It's about actually saving lives. And we lose sight of that all the time here. And, I mean, we can see again, like there's so much money flowing in. Just $373 million in October alone globally has flowed into food and tech investment. If you guys are familiar with the Institute for the Future, they do a really, really good job of looking at kind of what are these ideas that are on the edge or on the fringe. They call them signals. This is the Seeds of Disruption map. I can send this to you later. But for me, the question comes down to, what is the future of food? It really is, what is the future of food that we want? Do I really want pizza? Do I really want a restaurant without employees? I feel like pizza is like having empty sex. And sex sells. Pizza will actually work. But that's really what I want to leave you with is, what is the future of food that you want? And we're privileged to be able to afford many different types of quinoa. But every time we vote with our fork and with our wallets and with our investments and our time and energy, that's really the most important thing to think about is what is the future food that we want to create? And do we want fermented egg yolks? I mean, personally, I'd rather have a chicken. I'd rather have a happy chicken. I'd rather run around with it. And I still believe in the importance of what you're doing. So I want to just leave you with that question. What is it that we want our future food to look like? Thank you.